My wife betrayed me by having an affair with my best friend, then secretly forged my signature to sell our family home for $350, $0. Now she's suing me for half the proceeds while claiming I'm an unfit father. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this. But here I am, sitting in my living room trying to process how everything I built with my wife, Lisa, just crumbled in a matter of weeks. The craziest part. The betrayal wasn't just about some secret affair. It was layered with lies, money, and a sense of complete betrayal that hit me like a freight train. It started subtly. At first, Lisa was just acting a little distant, more than usual. She'd cancel plans last minute, say she was busy with work, or just disappear for hours without explanation. I brushed it off. I thought maybe she was overwhelmed, or maybe I was just imagining things, but then I noticed her phone was more guarded than Fort Knox. She'd hide it whenever I came near, and I'd catch her typing on it late at night when she thought I was asleep. Small things, but enough to make me suspicious. One day I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I figured I'd surprise her with dinner. As I walked in, I heard muffled voices coming from the bedroom. I froze. My heart started pounding. I peeked around the corner, and what I saw made my stomach drop. There she was, Lisa, on top of my best friend Tom. They were in bed, tangled up, clearly doing more than just talking. Her hands were all over him, and they looked so into each other, like they didn't even hear me come in. The worst part, they didn't notice I was watching. I saw Tom's hand move to her waist, and Lisa was laughing in that way she only does when she's really enjoying herself. I didn't say a word, just backed out quietly and went to the garage to process what I'd just seen. I was in shock. My mind was racing, trying to believe it wasn't real, but the visual was burned into my brain. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't ready yet. Later that night, I waited until she was asleep, then went through her phone. I found messages, hundreds of texts, some explicit, some just flirtatious. And the worst, they were planning a secret weekend getaway, just the two of them. That was the moment I knew this wasn't some one-time thing. It had been going on for a while. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. How could she do this? How could she lie so easily? She always told me she loved me, that I was everything she wanted. Turns out she had been lying all along. I was devastated. But what hit me harder was the realization that she had been sneaking around behind my back, and worse, she'd been lying about her feelings. She told me she was stressed with work, that she was just tired, but behind my back she was sharing intimate moments with Tom. That wasn't just cheating. That was a full-on betrayal of everything we had. I've never felt so betrayed in my life. It was like my whole world was crashing down, and I had no idea what to do next. After I found out about the affair, everything changed in an instant. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind kept replaying the images I saw: Lisa on top of Tom, their secret conversations, the planned getaway. I felt like I was in some kind of nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The worst part was the feeling of betrayal. I had trusted her completely. We had built a life together, good jobs, a nice house, a little dog we adored. I thought we were solid, that we had something real. But it turns out I was just blind. That night I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what to do. I knew I couldn't just brush this off. I had to confront her. The next morning I woke her up early before she could leave for work. I told her I knew everything: the affair, the messages, the plans. Her face was a mask of shock and annoyance, like I'd just ruined her day. She rolled her eyes and said, "Oh, come on, it's not a big deal. You're overreacting. It was just sex, and Tom's a good guy. You're making it into something it's not." I couldn't believe her. That was her first response. No apology, no explanation, just denial and blame shifting. I told her how hurt I was, how betrayed I felt. She scoffed and told me I was being paranoid, that I was just insecure and jealous. She said, "You're acting crazy. I didn't do anything wrong. Tom's just a friend, and you're overreacting because you're insecure about your own shortcomings." That was the moment I realized she wasn't going to own up or take any responsibility. Instead, she doubled down, throwing blame my way. I felt a mix of rage and sadness. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her and make her see how much she'd hurt me. But I just sat there, silent, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. I knew I had to think about what was next. I couldn't stay in this hellhole of lies and betrayal. Over the next few days, she kept up her act, acting normal, pretending everything was fine. But I saw right through her. She'd be bitchy, dismissive, and always trying to gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. Meanwhile, I was spiraling. I couldn't focus at work. I was constantly checking her phone, and I felt like I was losing my mind. The trust was shattered. And then I found out she'd been secretly forging my signature to sell our house. That was the final straw. I couldn't believe she'd go that far, selling the only thing we had left without even telling me. It turned out she'd been planning it for weeks. She forged my signature on the papers, sold the house for $350, $0, and then tried to keep the money for herself. When I confronted her about it, she lied, said she needed the money, that I was an unfit father, and that she was doing it for the kids. But I knew the truth. She'd been planning everything behind my back. She'd even hired a lawyer to sue me for half of the proceeds, claiming I was an unfit parent and that I'd neglected my duties. Honestly, I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. The betrayal, the lies, the money, the whole thing felt like a bad movie I couldn't wake up from. I was angry, hurt, and completely betrayed. I never saw it coming, and now I was left holding the pieces of a life I thought I knew. I couldn't believe how far she'd gone to hurt me, to take everything I cared about, and to destroy what we had. I kept asking myself, how did I get here? How did I let it get this bad? And more than anything, I wondered how I was going to get through it. The whole situation started spiraling out of control faster than I could keep up. After discovering she'd forged my signature and sold the house, I felt like I was living in some twisted nightmare. I couldn't believe she'd go that far, sneaking around, lying, forging my name just to cash in and cover her tracks. The money she got from selling the house, $350, $0, was more than enough to make me realize she'd been planning her escape for a while. But what hit me even harder was the lawsuit she filed against me, claiming I was an unfit father and demanding half the proceeds. That was the moment I felt the full weight of her betrayal. I remember sitting in the living room, staring at the legal papers she sent me. Her handwriting, her signature so carefully forged, made my blood boil. She was trying to take everything I had left. The house, our savings, the kids' future, all because she thought she could manipulate her way out of this mess. I couldn't accept that. I knew I had to do something, but I was also overwhelmed with grief, rage, and confusion. I started digging into everything: lawyers, the property deeds, her phone records. I needed proof. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. The more I looked, the more I found out about her plans. She'd been secretly talking to a lawyer behind my back, preparing to sue me, all the while pretending everything was fine. She kept telling me I was an unfit father, that I wasn't responsible enough for the kids. That was the point where I realized she'd been planning her revenge for months. She was trying to destroy me, to take the kids away, and to keep the money she'd stolen. Meanwhile, she kept up her bitchy attitude, throwing accusations and insults whenever she could. She'd call me lazy, irresponsible, and say I didn't care about the kids or her. But I knew the truth. I'd been working my ass off to give us a good life. My job was demanding, but I always made time for my family. Now I felt like she was trying to turn everyone against me, to paint me as the bad guy so she could win her legal battle. One day, she brought the kids over, acting all innocent, like nothing was wrong, but I could see right through her. She was smiling, but her eyes were cold. She had already sold the house, taken the money, and was working on her legal case. I was furious. How could she do this? How could she lie and cheat and then try to turn the kids against me? I didn't want to believe she was capable of this level of cruelty, but the evidence was staring me in the face. I decided I had no choice but to fight back. I hired a lawyer myself, someone who specialized in family law and property disputes. I wanted to prove that the sale was illegal because she forged my signature. I wanted to get the money back, and I wanted full custody of the kids. I knew I had a long road ahead, but I couldn't just sit back and let her ruin everything. My pride, my reputation, my relationship with my children, they all depended on me standing up for myself. At the same time, I couldn't help feeling a deep sense of betrayal. She'd lied to my face so many times, manipulated everyone around her, and even tried to turn the kids against me. Every day, I woke up feeling more determined to fight for what's right, but also more broken inside. I kept asking myself how the woman I loved and trusted could do something so cold and calculated. I kept replaying all the moments when she looked at me like I was the love of her life, and now I knew those moments were just lies. All of it was just a facade to hide her true intentions. The emotional toll was immense. I went from feeling hopeful to feeling crushed. I felt anger, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal that I didn't think was possible. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. I owed it to myself, to my kids, to stand up and fight. I wasn't going down without a fight. I had to dig deep, find my strength, and expose her lies, because if I didn't, she'd take everything. My house, my kids, my money, and I'd be left with nothing but the scars of her betrayal. The legal battle was intense from the start. I never imagined I'd be going through something like this, fighting my own wife over our house, our money, and the custody of our kids. She was relentless, pushing her narrative that I was an unfit, irresponsible father who didn't care about the family. Honestly, it was infuriating. Every time she threw another accusation, I felt like I was being punched in the gut. But I knew I had to stay calm, gather evidence, and fight back with everything I had. My lawyer told me that forging my signature on the sale documents was a serious felony. If we could prove it, the sale would be invalid and she could face criminal charges. That was the angle I focused on. I started digging through her emails, phone records, and even hired a private investigator. I needed proof that she'd been planning this for months. I found texts where she was coordinating with her lawyer, discussing how to hide the true value of the house and how to avoid me finding out. It was all laid out in black and white. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, acting like the innocent victim, playing the poor misunderstood wife card whenever she was in court. She was bitchy, dismissive, and condescending. She'd roll her eyes when I tried to explain my side, and she even accused me of neglecting the kids. She told the judge I was irresponsible, that I didn't care enough. I felt like screaming in frustration. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she turn our life into this chaos just to get what she wanted? The emotional toll was brutal. I was exhausted, mentally, physically, emotionally. Every day I was on edge, wondering if I was going to lose everything. I'd wake up with a knot in my stomach, and by night I'd be lying awake, replaying every conversation, every lie she told. But I kept pushing through because I knew I had to fight for my rights and for my kids. I couldn't let her manipulate her way into full custody, especially after what she did with the house and the money. One of the hardest moments was when she brought the kids to visit. She tried to act like everything was normal, but I could see right through her. She was trying to sway the kids, telling them I was a bad father, that I didn't care about them. I was furious. I wanted to tell her to stop, to just be honest for once, but I knew that wouldn't help. Instead, I stayed calm, played with the kids, and made sure they knew I loved them. I wanted them to know the truth, even if she was trying to manipulate their minds. The worst part was realizing how much she'd lied to everyone around her, our friends, family, even the kids. She was painting herself as the victim, claiming I was a drunk, lazy, irresponsible guy who didn't deserve to see the kids. But I knew the truth. I was the one working hard, trying to keep everything afloat while she schemed behind my back. I felt betrayed on every level, by her, by Tom, by everyone who believed her lies. Despite everything, I stayed focused. I kept pushing forward, trusting my lawyer and gathering more evidence. I knew that if I wanted to reclaim my life and protect my kids, I had to be relentless. I began preparing for the worst, knowing Lisa would do anything to win. But I also knew I had truth on my side, and I wasn't going down without a fight. I had to prove her deception, her lies, and her greed, because if I didn't, I'd lose everything I cared about. And I wasn't going to let that happen. The court hearings dragged on for what felt like forever. Each session was a new battlefield, Lisa sitting there, bitchy and dismissive, throwing accusations like confetti, trying to paint me as the villain. She claimed I was an irresponsible father, that I neglected the kids, that I was too busy with work or too drunk to care. It was all a lie, but she was good at spinning stories. Meanwhile, I had mountains of evidence, texts, emails, witness statements, that proved her planning, her forging my signature, and her outright betrayal. I remember feeling numb most days, like I was just going through the motions. The pain of knowing she'd lied, cheated, and stolen from us was overwhelming. I kept asking myself how I got here, how everything went so wrong so fast. But I also knew I had to stay strong for the sake of my kids, for myself. I couldn't let her manipulate her way into full custody, not after what she'd done. I had to prove she was unfit, not just through legal documents, but also through how she was treating the children. The turning point came when I finally got a hold of the forensic evidence showing her forgery. My lawyer managed to get the court to order a handwriting analysis, and it confirmed that she'd forged my signature on the sale documents. That was huge. The judge looked at the evidence and started to see her for what she was, a manipulative, greedy woman who would do anything to get her way. The house sale was declared invalid, and the proceeds, $350,000, were frozen until the court decided what to do. Meanwhile, I was fighting hard for custody. I wanted my kids to be safe from her lies and schemes. I hired a child psychologist to evaluate her, and their report painted a pretty clear picture. She was emotionally unstable, manipulative, and incapable of providing a stable environment. That didn't sit well with her, of course. She got bitchier, more aggressive, and started accusing me of all sorts of things: being an unfit father, neglecting the kids, even trying to turn them against her. But I knew the truth. I was the one who was there every day, the one who took care of them, loved them, and shielded them from her lies. The final court hearing was the most intense. I sat there, exhausted but determined, as my lawyer presented every piece of evidence. Lisa's lawyer tried to dismiss it all, but the judge wasn't having it. The evidence of forgery, her secret plans, her lies about my parenting, they all piled up. In the end, the judge awarded full custody to me, ordered Lisa to pay back the money she stole, and declared the house sale null and void. The aftermath was a whirlwind. I finally felt some relief, but the pain of betrayal lingered. Lisa was furious. She stormed out of the courtroom, screaming that she'd fight me for everything. She filed more lawsuits, trying to drag things out, but I knew I had won a huge battle. I was tired, emotionally drained, but I had my kids, my integrity, and my dignity. I realized how much I'd been blindsided, how trusting I'd been, and how deeply her betrayal had cut me. Looking back, I learned some harsh lessons. Trust needs boundaries, and not everyone who smiles at you is on your side. I learned that greed and lies can destroy everything you hold dear if you're not careful. Most importantly, I learned that even in the darkest moments, standing up for yourself and fighting for what's right can make all the difference. I may have been betrayed, but I was still here, still fighting, and still determined to rebuild what was lost. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize how much this whole nightmare has changed me. At first, I felt shattered, completely broken by her lies, her betrayal, and the way she tried to steal everything I cared about. But in the end, I found a kind of clarity. I learned that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you can start climbing back up. I also learned that no matter how bad someone hurts you, you can still find the strength to fight back. Getting through the legal mess, the betrayal, and the emotional chaos wasn't easy. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, questioning how I could have been so blind. But I also found resilience I didn't know I had. I learned to trust my instincts again, to value honesty, and to be more cautious about who I let into my life. I realize now I should never have ignored the small signs: her dismissiveness, her secretive phone habits, her dismissive attitude when I brought up her behavior. I wish I'd seen it sooner, but I also know that sometimes you only see the truth when it's forced in your face. Most importantly, I learned that revenge isn't about getting even. It's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your peace of mind. I didn't seek to ruin her. I wanted justice for what she did to us. I wanted to show her that her lies and manipulations wouldn't go unpunished. And I did. I fought hard and I won. The house, the money, the custody of my kids, Everything was restored to me because I refused to let her destroy me. Now I'm slowly rebuilding. I've moved into a new place, started therapy to deal with the emotional scars, and I'm focusing on my kids more than ever. They're the reason I keep going. I want them to grow up knowing that even in the worst circumstances, you can find strength to forgive, to rebuild, and to move forward. I don't hold any hatred for Lisa anymore. I just feel sorry for her. She's the one who lost everything, her integrity, her family, her future. If there's one thing I want others who are going through something similar to remember, it's this: don't ignore the signs. Trust yourself enough to stand up for what's right. And no matter how much someone hurts you, you have the power to fight back and reclaim what's yours. It's not easy and it takes time, but in the end, honesty and integrity will always win out. I've learned that the hard way. Now I'm just grateful to be moving on, stronger and wiser than I was before.